Hello, and welcome to the Office of Youth Programs and Compliance Required Training for Regulation 01.25.18 for programs and activities that involve the participation of minors. Minors are defined as individuals under the age of 18 who are not current NC State students. The terminology used throughout this presentation is intended to include all programs and activities that fall under the regulation. Many times, these will simply be referred to as programs. Additional definitions can be found in the regulation. This training covers the topics required by Reg 01.25.18 and meets the training component for compliance with the regulation. A PDF with notes is available on the Youth Programs and Compliance website at go.ncsu.edu/protection of minors. Be prepared to take notes and follow up on items that need clarification. My contact information will be listed at the end of the presentation if you have any questions. Minors regulation training is required annually. The date of this training will be recorded upon completion. Safety is a shared responsibility, and all employees should be aware of their responsibilities and boundaries in working with minors. This training applies to the vast scope of programs and activities with minors that occur through NC State University. It is designed to supplement the program-specific training necessary for your role in working with minors. It should be used in conjunction with the Youth Program Coordinator Handbook, which provides additional details for risk management and safety related to activities involving youth. The handbook is located under Best Practices on the Youth Programs and Compliance website. The first training requirement is to review applicable university policies, procedures, and rules, including this regulation. If you have not already, take time to read through the minors regulation. Review the Youth Program Coordinator Handbook. Reference the resources at the website. Review your program's rules and guidelines for interacting with minors. Review your program's process for incident reports, behavioral issues, and accidents. Know your program's policy for handling disciplinary issues. Those working with minors in NC State programs and activities shall not have contact with minors in seclusion. There should be 2 or more covered individuals present during activities when minors are present. Enter a minor's room, bathroom facility, or similar area without another covered individual in attendance. Share accommodations with minors, with the exception of minors' parents or guardians sharing accommodations with their own children. Engage in abusive conduct of any kind toward or in the presence of a minor. Strike, hit, administer corporal punishment to, or touch in an inappropriate or illegal manner any minor. The expectation regarding no one-on-one interactions with minors in seclusion may need further review in your program practices. Please talk with your leadership and refer to the handbook for best practices. Behavioral expectations continued. Those working with minors in NC State programs or activities shall not provide alcohol or illegal drugs to any minor. Covered individuals also must not provide prescription drugs or any medication to a minor unless specifically authorized in writing by the parent or legal guardian as being required for the minor's care. In case of emergency, call 911. Shall not use a personal vehicle to transport a minor. Use personal text, email, or social media to communicate with minors outside of the official program. Expose minors to sexually explicit materials such as pornography or engage in any other conduct deemed inappropriate by the youth program's office. Avoiding the use of personal vehicles and avoiding the use of personal electronic communication are expectations that may need further review in your program practices. Contact your leadership or the Office of Youth Programs and Compliance for clarification. Next, we'll look at risk management best practices. Structure activities to avoid injuries. Identify areas of risk and discuss how to reduce the risks. Typical areas of concern include transportation, electronic communication, medical or allergic reactions, labs and fieldwork, and overnight stays. Good decisions and attentive supervision can reduce the risk in these areas significantly. These are the supervision ratios provided by the American Camp Association. They are considered a best practice for supervision standards. Minors must be supervised throughout the duration of the program or activity. Avoid distractions while supervising minors. Depending on your location and program activities, emergency situations may be handled differently. Make sure you know your program's plans for safety in each of these situations. Refer to the Youth Program Coordinator Handbook for details. Next, we will look at health and first aid. Review this list and the details related to each of these in the Youth Program Coordinator Handbook. Make sure you are aware of your participants' health history, allergies, and medical needs. Inform parents in writing of situations where they will need to be notified of participant injury or illness. Document when parents have been contacted or attempts to contact have been made. Maintain records of all health care provided and reports of all incidents requiring professional medical treatment. The next required training component is child abuse identification and reporting. Based on the statistics shown, we know that child abuse is prevalent in the community and exists even in higher education. Abuse thrives in an environment where adults are inattentive, in denial, or afraid to take action. We must actively work to prevent it and take steps to create a safe environment for minors. The earlier that abuse is identified and reported, the better the chance of recovery for the minor. When we look at the portrait of an abuser, specifically a sexual abuser, most are known to the victim. The abuser could be a family member, a friend of the family, a teacher, older youth, coach, counselor, or another child under the age of 18. Some abusers are careful and calculated about the process they take to earn the victim's trust. This process of slowly introducing a child to sexual activity is called grooming. These abusers set up the situation so that they can take advantage of the child. They become friends with potential victims and their families. They earn trust and seek time alone with the children. Sometimes they spend time doing what the child wants. Sometimes they give gifts. Their goal is to spend time with the child in one-on-one situations. Then they may threaten or force the child to participate in sexual contact and maintain secrecy. Some abusers take advantage of the situation and opportunity to find and abuse a victim. These abusers are impulsive and abuse minors to meet their own sexual or control needs. The effects of abuse have long-lasting emotional impact. Abused children can blame themselves, lack trust, and have difficulties forming relationships into adulthood. Often these children feel that they are worthless or damaged at their core. As an adult, this may cause the victim to fall short of reaching his or her potential and puts them more at risk for abusing other children. The effects of child abuse affect not only the individual, but current and future communities as well. We will now look at the 4 types of child abuse. Physical abuse is non-accidental physical injury ranging from minor bruises to severe fractures or death as a result of punching, beating, kicking, biting, shaking, throwing, stabbing, choking, hitting, burning, inflicted by a parent, caregiver, or other person that has responsibility for a child, regardless of intention. Emotional or psychological abuse is a pattern of behavior that impairs a child's emotional development or sense of self-worth, including constant criticism, threats, rejection, and exposure to domestic violence. Neglect is failure to provide for a child's basic needs, including physical, medical, and emotional. And sexual abuse is any sexual act between an adult and a minor or between 2 minors when one exerts power over the other. The risk for sexual abuse in youth activities requires a closer look. Sexual abuse doesn't always involve bodily contact. If an adult engages in any sexual behavior with a child to meet the adult's interests or needs, it is abuse. Indecent exposure, exposure to pornography, exploitation through prostitution or the production of pornographic material, sexting and other communication in a sexual manner over the phone or internet is abuse. Sexual abuse can occur between members of the opposite sex or members of the same sex. Sexual abuse is a crime. Aiding and abetting a sexual offender is also a crime. All child abuse is an exploitation of a child's vulnerability and powerlessness in which the abuser is fully responsible for the actions. Be aware of these possible warning signs. A warning sign is an opportunity for prevention and a chance for you to recognize a risk to a minor. Abused children may display a wide range of physical or emotional symptoms. While these symptoms do not necessarily indicate that child abuse has happened, they combine to raise your level of concern about the situation. Also know that sometimes there are no warning signs. Warning signs differ by the age of the minor. A child is more likely to suffer abuse or neglect in the home than at a camp or a program. A child may disclose to a trusted adult that a relative or caregiver is abusing them. If participants disclose personal information that causes alarm, we must report it. During a disclosure, avoid denial. Provide a safe environment. Reassure the child and really listen. Do not make assumptions, do not interrogate or make promises. Document exact quotes and be supportive and non-judgmental. Seek advice. There are 4 questions you should ask. What happened? Who did this to you? When did this happen? Where were you when this happened? Asking any additional questions may contaminate a case. Always report it. Due to the sensitive nature of this type of report, it is important to maintain the highest level of confidentiality and professionalism. Our next training requirement is to review the procedures for reporting incidents of suspected abuse or neglect or improper conduct. It is a state of North Carolina law that any person or institution who has cause to suspect that any juvenile is abused, neglected, or dependent, or has died as a result of maltreatment shall report the case to the Director of the Department of Social Services in the county where the juvenile resides or is found. If the child is a victim of a violent offense, sexual offense, or misdemeanor child abuse, the report must also be made to local law enforcement. The law requires that the Department of Social Services be notified. On NC State's campus, you must also notify University Police and the Director of Youth Programs and Compliance. Our last training requirement is to review the guidelines for protecting minors from emotional and physical abuse and neglect. We do this by respecting the rights and dignity of all individuals, being alert for peer-to-peer conduct or bullying. There is 0 tolerance for bullying. It must be identified, addressed, and documented. Setting expectations for participants that encourage peer-to-peer friendships but discourage intimacy or sexual behavior. And by being alert for indications that seem not right. Be sure you are aware of the procedure in place for reporting and dealing with incidents between children from the slight to the serious. If you have concerns related to a participant's behavior, another staff member's behavior, or how to report, discuss with your leadership and the Office of Youth Programs and Compliance. Thank you for your attention to the Minors Regulation Training. If you are completing the training through Reporter, your next step will be to agree to the personal boundaries for working with minors in NC State programs and activities. The system may take up to 24 hours to record your completion. Once the system updates, you will receive an email certificate. If you are viewing this training outside of Reporter, be sure to follow instructions provided through your program. Contact information will follow on the next slide. All the best to you and your program.